Hello, this is Follow Up Friday, the show where I take 5 minutes to talk about my top 5 favourite things inspired by this week's episode of Doctor Who. And today I'm talking Alien Worlds. Welcome back, one and all. I'm not entirely sure why talking Alien Worlds requires to take my glasses off, but it does. Today I'm going to be talking about my personal 5 favourite alien worlds from Doctor Who. And just to get this out of the way, I'm not going to be talking about Skaro or Gallifrey in this, because we've visited those worlds so many times, we've seen so many great interpretations of them, but probably an equal number of less compelling versions. So I'm putting those to one side. I'm just going to talk about the 5 which really stand out for me. Coming in at number 5 is a bit of a cheat, because in fact we only ever see one room on this world and 2 people on it, and none of those are the TARDIS crew, because I'm talking about Androzani Major from the Caves of Androzani. Now, most of the action in Caves of Androzani is set on Androzani Minor. That's where the Spectrox mines are, that's where the big killer lizard dragon thing is, and the bats and the mercenaries and Shara's Jack and all that kind of good stuff. But what always fascinated me about this episode was actually the subplot we get with Morgus and Timin, is it? I think his assistant. And the world building that Robert Holmes manages to do in his script with just those 2 characters and a room. Coming in at number 4 is the world of Midnight from the episode of the same name. I love the fact that we're now in an era of Doctor Who where we can use CGI to realise alien worlds, and this world is beautiful. The crystal canyons that we see, we don't see much of them, but we see enough to really put us in our place. And the Midnight creature in this episode, called that because we have nothing else to call it, is really creepy, the way it copies the Doctor's speech. Fantastic. Speaking of worlds which are impressively well created for the era of Doctor Who they come from, our number 3 spot goes to Marinus from the Keys of Marinus, a William Hartnell story. Sure, it's slow and stagey, but that was TV in the early 60s. If you put that aside, if you're looking for a classic series episode to try out, and you're a New Who fan, the Keys of Marinus is actually not a bad choice. Its individual quest-based story in the different episodes that make up the overarching Keys of Marinus feels very New Who. Each different environment is realised very nicely for each different episode and brings it all together at the end. Back to the David Tennant era for number 2 in the list, and that is The Impossible Planet from The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit. I really like the way that this world is imagined, hanging on the edge of a black hole, never quite falling in, containing a dark and ancient secret. There are few worlds in the history of Doctor Who which are more inherent to the story they appear in. The world which I've put at number 1 in my list almost feels like another cheat, because it's almost a bit too local, because the world I have in mind is Mars. And we have visited this world and been visited by this world on many occasions in Doctor Who. But even if we put aside the Ice Warriors, because that's not the world, that's a species from that world, we see Mars coming up time and again throughout the history of Doctor Who. Pyramids of Mars with Tom Baker. Fantastic story, memorable villain in Sutekh, and Tom Baker doing Tom Baker at his most Tom Baker-ish. And then we come to David Tennant's era and we get The Waters of Mars, a brilliant zombie infection type story set against a hard science fiction background with the exploration of Mars underpinning it. And most recently, of course, The Empress of Mars. Not the best Ice Warrior story ever, but I enjoy the juxtaposition of the British redcoat colonialism idea against the alien world exploration concept. So there we go, that's my top 5. Did I miss any of your favourite worlds? Let me know in the comments section down below. That's it from me. If you want to check out more of my opinions of Doctor Who, there's a box over here. If you want to find out more about my writing, there's a box over there. Subscribe and like if you feel the urge. Otherwise, I will be back next week with my review of the next episode of Doctor Who. Thanks for watching. Cheers.